The Halloween spirit has definitely hit me like a truck in the last few days, and all I've been thinking about is the Headless Horseman and how cool he looks and how I've never tackled him before. So hi everyone, I'm Ward and welcome to my channel Ward Draws a Lot, and this week we're going to learn a little about the Headless Horseman and draw him. Now, what you just saw was the original sketch, but I wanted to kind of clean it up a little bit. I wanted to center it on the page and kind of, get rid of all those eraser marks because I didn't know if I was going to be doing marker at this point or not. So I pulled out my trusty dusty little light pad, which I've had since I think 2019, and I used to use it all the time and I stopped. That's mostly because I switched over to an actual sketchbook instead of just the separate pieces of paper that I would use to do final drawings on. So I was like, you know what, let's kind of take this drawing and then retrace it back into this other sketchbook that I have. That's right, you got me. I got two sketchbooks. What am I gonna say? I really wanted to do this drawing on one entire page. The sketchbook that I currently use is the Marker sketchbook by Bailey J, and I love it to death, but it's small, and I really wanted to do a larger drawing of this in one entire page instead of it kind of cutting in between two pages. So that's why I pulled out this sketchbook instead to kind of do it in here. And here's like a comparison of before and after, by the way, of those two sketches. So this way you could see that it really is cleaned up in comparison to what it was before and centered better and all that jazz. I also fixed the proportions a little bit so it just looked a little bit better on the paper. At this point, I realized that I kind of wanted it to look painterly, so I was like, originally, hold on, let me take you out to this thought process. Hold on. Okay, originally, I wanted to do gouache, right? But I realized with the time frame that I have to complete this drawing, and with my lack of skill in gouache, that I was like, this is gonna end horribly. So I was like, okay, what's like another option for something to look painterly but not have the painterly effort to it? So I immediately had the brain blast moment of using my acrylic markers, and I wanted to use the Deli Acrylic markers that I've had for two reasons. Number one, I haven't used them since I did the review on them, and number two, I remembered that their blendability was really good, and they were like not too opaque, so this way you can mix the colors together nicely, especially for the drying time of acrylic markers, which is like pretty quick. So I thought that they were the perfect thing to use for this drawing. Before I forget, I wanted to say that the inspiration of me drawing the Headless Horseman came from, well, a variety of things. Number one, of course, is October. Beautiful month. I love this month. I like Halloween a lot. Always have ever since I was a kid. So, I had to pull through with something. Number two, it's because I've been obsessing over like artists and what their works were and like, all this stuff. And one of the artists that I came across in the last month was Frank Frazetta, and he has like a horror almost like category. He went through 4 main categories in his life of different art that he would do, and one of them was his horror category, and I came across his Headless Horseman picture, and I was like, wow, like not only is he an incredible artist, right? Like I love this dude's work, but it's also that like the way that he drew the Headless Horseman was like really cool, and I really love the angle that he did and the colors that he used and how much expression was used within the piece and all that. And I was like, wow, man, like that looks really cool. After I saw that picture, I was like, damn, I kind of want to draw the Headless Horseman. Now, of course, I'm not going to be doing it nearly as incredible as him. But it's nice that artists can always influence or inspire other artists and kind of put out their own work. So that's exactly what, I ended up doing here. So admittedly, I knew nothing of the Headless Horseman. I think all I really knew was like from that one Scooby-Doo episode from when I was a kid. And like, I don't remember anything from that episode besides that, it was the Headless Horseman that was chasing after them. Anything else that I can recall from it before I kind of learned something about him? Not really. In fact, I feel like because it's such an older media that a lot of people don't like, I guess, go towards or for it. It's funny to me. I feel like older media is either really respected and loved, or it's like really pushed away into like the back lines because it is older. And since the story is very like, I guess you could say, more of a back then scary story, more so than like a now scary story, because I feel like scary stories from, you know, 200-300 years ago versus now are completely different entities. A lot of the horror today revolves around like, you know, some kind of entity that kills everybody, or like is surrounded more so around body horror or like things of the sort. But more so the stuff in the past revolves around these spirits or beings that are kind of mythical almost. So it's very interesting to see the transition of what people find scary, and how it kind of maybe even reflects on society today. Like, a lot of people aren't very prone to believing ghosts or like spirits or mythical things because they just don't physically see them. I don't know, do you guys kind of believe in that stuff? Like, I kind of do, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm not gonna lie, ghosts and stuff, they do be creeping me out, and I do think that there's definitely like some stuff like that, and that's like the creepy thing to me. But a now present horror to make sense of like the present times would be like a serial killer or somebody who comes after you, or like some kind of body horror, stuff like that, I guess, is more grounded to a degree, right? Because it's more realistic, quote unquote. It's something you could see with your eyes and rationalize to a degree that it does exist and that it can hurt you. But if a ghost is not physically in front of you and you've never had proof of it before, then sometimes you're going to be like, I don't know if it exists. Because although I do believe, there's the one time out of 10 I'm like, I don't know if that is real, you know? So everybody is different when it comes to what scares them, and what is classified as a horror story or a scary story for them. Now, when it comes to the Headless Horseman, supposedly he's based off of like a true event that happened. So apparently during the Revolutionary War, one of the Hessen soldiers, which was like the German backup for the British, I guess you could say, was his head got just completely blown off by a cannon, and like apparently his teammates kind of dragged him off the field, and supposedly his spirit lives on by trying to find the pieces of his head scattered along the battlefield, and he's trying to like collect them. Supposedly the reason why a pumpkin is represented as his head is because it happened during the month of October, specifically towards the end. So the like Halloweeny stuff was kind of going Halloween stuff was like going around, and of course there were a bunch of pumpkins everywhere carved with faces, so he would pick one up, use it as his head for the vessel until he actually finds his real head somewhere along the lines, if he ever does. Now, the Headless Horseman isn't only a tale in America, but it's also a tale like in Scotland, Germany, Ireland, I think like Sweden too or something like that. But I know that this is a story that is not exclusive to the town of Sleepy Hollow in New York, but kind of like an all over the world thing, which always makes me wonder like how many stories exist like this, where although they have like no correlation to the origin spot, the quote unquote origin, there's also these other places that have similar stories, and some that have been here for like centuries at a time. It's interesting because so many different people probably had so many different ideas, and then also saw many different things, so it could be one or the other, and that's how these kind of like folklores are everywhere all over the world. I know some places have quote unquote exclusive folklores or like entities. Like in New Jersey there's something called the Jersey Devil. I think it resides in the Pine Barrens, and then like it comes after people sometimes and hangs off the side of cars and just basically harasses the people in Jersey. So That's definitely something that I feel like is exclusive to an area. However, there also have been stories of different forests that reside like demons or devilish creatures in there, and in many other cultures, they're believed that those dark entities reside within trees. So it makes sense that that creature would reside in a forest like the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. So it's very interesting to see how these cultures, although many of them weren't necessarily connected, come together when it comes to these mythical creatures and beings, and how cool it is that we can connect through them almost. Connecting back to the Headless Horseman, though, I'm kind of curious as to how these other countries kind of did their stories on this mythical being, I guess we could say, and if it's any similar to what it is from the story from America. Now, although there are like a bunch of different artist renditions of the Headless Horseman, a lot of them kind of do it a different way, but it all kind of centers around the same thing. It revolves around a large black horse who looks very powerful and just, very striking, with the Headless Horseman on top, who is also a fairly large figure, and the pumpkin head. And I think the most iconic thing about the horseman himself is his cape. I feel like in almost every rendition you have, he has this large cape kind of engulfing everything around him, and that's kind of like what we see as him. It's kind of like a brooding or dark figure coming towards you when it has like a massive cape to it, right? Which is, again, very funny because sometimes you associate capes with heroes. So maybe at one point he was that hero, like he was fighting in the war, but the way he died, it didn't, it didn't carry on very well. So I guess that cape was kind of like a reverse symbolism of some sort. Now, admittedly, the colorway that I chose for the Hessen soldier uniform is definitely not right. It's off, and the reason why is because I saw this image when I was looking around for Headless Horseman stuff, and I was like, wow, I really like the way the top looks on this drawing, and I kind of want to take inspiration from that. I think it's like from a book. I'll tell you which book on the screen when I put up the picture and stuff, but I really liked the idea of how it overlapped, and it was almost like a kind of gold sheen that it had on it, and I thought that was really cool. So I went ahead and kind of went with that idea. The pants I think were supposed to be like white, but when I looked at other I guess historical colorings of it, it would look kind of khaki or yellowish, so I kind of went with that. Maybe I should have gone with white, I honestly don't know, but this piece was kind of hard, the colorway wise to distribute properly. The reason being is because there's so much usually dark colors associated with the Headless Horseman and the horse itself, and the area which he resides, which would be like a forest and stuff. So there was like a lot of colors that I was thinking, how could this work with? So I went with something that really stood out on the horse, because I'm like, realistically, if he's died in his uniform, that's the uniform that he would probably wear after death. But it would have been cooler to have him do a dark uniform. I think that if I would have done this piece maybe let's say digitally, it would have been much easier to go along with all those dark colors, because it would be much easier to find the right undertones to separate everything from itself properly. Because I'm using paint markers, there's only so many colors that I had, even if I was blending with them, that I could actually show what the character looked like on the horse without it getting too muddy. I tried using different grays and even really light greens to separate some color from the horse versus the horseman's boot, his glove, his cape. I didn't want it to look like a giant black mass, but it just ended up kind of almost approaching there. So I was trying to be really careful with how I put colors and where I put them. Overall, do I like the piece? Yes, I think it's really cool. I think, honestly, the horse looks better than the horseman. By the way, if any of you have drawn a horse and a person on it, it is significantly more difficult to draw the person on the horse than the horse itself. I don't know what it was. I locked in for the horse. I was like, bet, I got it, no problem. When it came to drawing the horseman himself on it, I was like, damn, I'm having a lot of trouble. And I think it's because putting a person on another thing is always like a difficult thing to do. But overall, I really do love how the piece came out. I feel like it's just dark enough and kind of has that vibe of the horseman looking around for the pieces while he's carrying the pumpkin on his hand, and it looks like the spirit is kind of coming out of it. I think a glowing green aura is very much what the horseman, or the headless horseman, shows for me. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye!